Okay. Do you know Troy, Annie? Whoops, I lost your sound.
I
What?
don't. I don't know Troy. Welcome, Troy.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Where are you from?
I'm in LA.
Oh, we won't hold that against you.
So, Troy, this is Jean's sister.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Troy.
Annie shows up every week. I have to learn how to do this a little bit. Oh, you got the baby.
Yeah, I got the baby and 3 dogs. Um, Troy, I'm out of Scottsdale.
Got it.
Yeah,
Beautiful area. Hot though.
it is. Arizona's beautiful. It's just I love Arizona, but I love Southern California. We live Huntington Beach. That's our fave. When we go visit.
I gotta say, the California people are the first ones on here this morning on a different time zone. Look at that. Sammy is there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Annie's in Scottsdale at 6 in the morning. Okay, Stacy's coming in Louisiana. That's good. LJ Johnson, hi. It says he's from California.
Oh, where from?
Let's get him. Kim is coming in. Oh, California High Desert. Wonderful. Is this the first time that you've been on this call? You can unmute yourself and introduce yourself. That'd be great, LJ. Oh, he's been on a few times. Cool. Hey, Kim, good morning.
Thanks for sending me the Zoom link this morning. Nice to see everybody.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I'm super excited to have Troy on as our guest today. And people, Troy, they come trickling. They're realtors. What can we say? But I met Troy briefly at our event, our regional rally a couple of weeks ago in Carlsbad, and we connected, and he said he knew me, and I was like, okay, I think I know you. But I started talking, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a guy that's in Inman all the time. This is the writer. This is the most influential person I know. So I asked Troy if he would be on, and he was like 6 a.m. And I'm like, dude, we all have to do it when we're on the West Coast at 6 a.m. So I told him he could come as he is. He could wear a sweatshirt, whatever he's comfortable in. And I'm just super stoked to get this started. Troy, I'm going to just have you talk about yourself, and we'll ask some questions, but mostly what you're passionate about and what you're seeing out there. Because when you speak, everybody listens to you. So, Troy, take it away.
Wow. Well, thank you for the intro. I don't know if everybody listens, but a couple people do. Yeah, so I'm Troy. I've been in the real estate space I think it's 23 years this year. Done everything from launching a brokerage to asset disposition. I was licensed in 4 states at one point, selling about 100 to 150 homes at a time. My biggest year, I sold just over 1,000 homes. Biggest week, I put 55 properties in escrow. Was a lot of fun, but was a lot of work, was on the road a lot. And, but it was definitely an experience of a lifetime that I got with that experience. Started my first brokerage in 2017, called The Address. It was a little office up in the Channel Islands Harbor in Oxnard, so in between Santa Barbara and Malibu. And had one agent for the longest time. It was so hard to go and get, agents to come and trust you to be their broker, when you haven't really sold in an area, and I was selling outside of where we lived. So it was a unique way to go and attract people. Talk about agent attraction when you don't know anybody and they look your stuff up and you're in a completely different city, state area with your experience and stuff. But ended up growing that over a 4-year period through COVID to 90 agents and 5 offices. Had acquisitions of another brokerage in Malibu, had an office in Newport. Had a lot of fun with it, and then it got acquired by a Corcoran franchise in January of 22. And so that was a lot of fun, a lot of experience there. We had built a top 1,000 brokerages in the US. We were doing just about a $500 million in sales at the time, and before it sold. So that was a good experience. From there, I started another brokerage. Not sure what was wrong with me, but decided to do it again, and learned a lot with that. Started it in again in kind of the same area, but grew in a different capacity. Ended up bringing on about 40 agents in a 5-month period. And then from there, I ended up speaking on stage with Michael Valdez, who we all know, at Inman Connect in Las Vegas in 23. So it would have been like July of 23. And from that conversation about attraction and recruiting was something that I almost turned down. I thought, there's no way I can go and like hold my own on stage with this guy. He's got 90,000 agents, one of the top brokerages in the United States, and here's little old me with 90. And the fear almost got me to not do that conversation. And so I ended up doing the conversation, and it was really good. And I ended up getting an opportunity to come and work at EXP. And so I was the director of growth for California for a while, and then subsequently was the vice president of marketing for EXP with Wendy in that group. And then in September of last year, I decided it just wasn't the right fit for me in the corporate world. I'm more of an agent at heart and broker owner at heart. And so we made the decision to leave the corporate world, although I still have my license at EXP and think we've got some of the best leadership in the industry, but just went a little different path with my career there. So as Peggy mentioned, I write for Inman News, I write for Housing Wire. Something I'm passionate about because I feel like it's the way that I can get back is through writing. I feel like I'm a horrible speaker, and I say a lot. And so the writing has always been that thing that I can get back to where people can read it. It has a lifespan that's much longer than words other places. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, what I've done.
So Troy, you sound so just, I don't like using the word demure, but you're very humble. And you just don't get to write for Inman and all the other things that you've done and become part of our leadership team by just under the radar. So we all have limited beliefs. And I want to step back and talk about that one first, because when you said being on stage with Michael Valdez, you almost didn't do it. What was the turning point that had you do it? What was like when you clicked in your head and said, hey, yeah, I can do that?
Pretty sure there was a couple glasses of wine involved.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's overcoming the roadblocks in your head. For me, some of the stuff is really kind of, I don't want to say stupid, but like, the ways to overcome it is how do you go and have fun with it a little bit more. Because you look at stuff and you look at these panels and these speakers, and sometimes they're all like super well dressed. And like, I kind of started, I started wearing sweatshirts on stage. And so one of the things that the way that I looked at the conversation with Michael was, how do I make it that I'm not overshadowed by somebody that was such a high profile person, and somebody that's, professional speaker and professional, executive. Like, how do I level the playing field? And I also looked at it that, God puts you in situations to grow. And that, with those circumstances and those situations, he's not going to put you in a spot where you can't handle it. And that's something through my life, in the last, 8 years that have been very prevalent for me, is that God won't put you through any more than anything that you can handle. And so it was instead of looking at it as a limiting belief of like, I can't do this or I shouldn't do this, it was like, here's an opportunity to do something, and do something really good. And so I think it was just challenging the mindset and challenging the little negative thoughts in your head that, you can do this, you do deserve to be here. And, what's the worst thing that can happen? Instead of thinking, what's the worst thing? What's the best thing that can happen? And
I love that.
and it's building the relationships and cultivating the relationships. I mean, Michael's not at EXP anymore. I saw him last week. I got a hug, built a friendship off of a conversation where if I had that imposter syndrome that really was able to set in, would have had a different change of, path for me.
Cool. So what are some of the top things let's talk about passion. What's going on in the industry? So you got to be a writer, speaker for Inman. How do you decide what you're going to write about? And let's hear what's going on right now in the market. Would you guys agree? We want like a little insider scoop because everybody's got to be like talking in your ear, Troy, wanting you to write about something. So give us all the hot stuff. And what was it like to be at Inman 2 weeks ago?
Inman 2 weeks ago, Inman last week was pretty cool. I'll say this, if you go and look at I've written a few hundred articles for Inman. I started kind of accidentally. I failed, English in high school twice. Took junior year twice. And so it was one of those things. It's like, okay, I know how to do it, but it started with just a fun article once, and then it kind of just evolved. I don't stay on a particular topic or particular thing. I write about kind of what I feel like and what I'm going through. So if you go through and like look chronologically at like a timeline of stuff, you can see where I lost an agent at a brokerage because I wrote like, an article about agents leaving. You can see where, I had cancer in 2020. And so there was an article that I wrote about, why the real estate industry needs to professionalize more like the medical industry. Like I couldn't even get into a doctor without a 3-month wait. Like, yet here we drop everything we're doing to go do a showing at 7 o'clock at night instead of doing dinner with family. And so there's, there's very much this chronological thing of like, where I see stuff. So, right now I'm doing a lot with technology and real estate companies with tech. And so the articles are kind of taking a trend towards that. You can see who's got my ear in particular things, because you can see like that's where the influence is going with the writing. But at the end of the day, everything I write, I try to write something that's going to have a positive impact on the readers, giving them something of value. I'm really into, if I can give somebody one piece of, a nugget of something that can go and impact their lives today and change their business tomorrow, that's what I want somebody to be able to find. So that's kind of what I write about. Your question, where do I see what's going on with the industry?
Yeah, what was the hot topic that's right, you were in Miami last week.
Yeah, so those local conversations that Inman do are really good. But they typically don't seem to go too far into like what's going on a national level. So they weren't necessarily talking about like all of the off-market inventory or exclusives or commissions or, this, that, and the other. Some of the conversations, for example, they had there were with developers that were building the big high-rise properties. Not necessarily something that resonates with everybody, but the Miami people ate it up, and it was great conversation, but not necessarily relevant to everybody. The conversation about AI is still something that is out there prevalent. And one of the things that I really look at is like it's evolving so quickly that you've really just got to be careful what you use and what you're using it for. The use of AI can really help you if you're doing it correctly and using the right stuff. It can also make you super dumb, and start pulling away some of that knowledge base that you actually have and filtering it in with fake stuff. So I think, that's one of those things that I think really people need to be cautious with. And you hear people talk about the use of AI, at all of these different conferences, and how it can do a listing presentation for you, or it can pull comps for you. Like, at the end of the day, I don't trust it to pull my comps. Like, seasoned professional, I should know how to pull my own comps and do it. And unless you're selling 30 or 40 houses a year, do you really not have the time to go and pull your own comps, and you need AI to do it?
Mm-hmm. So do you find that we're all getting too dependent on it? Is that, and everybody's got a platform that they like to use. You guys want to jump in and ask them some questions on that, on the use of AI? Anybody?
I am no means like cool like Phil Stringer. Like, I know
No.
a little, like, I use Chat GPT, and that's the fullest extent of what I even like care to do with it, because I don't want to and I don't even pay for a version. I got the free version.
I love it.
I just don't want it to come in and take over like my brain, and replace what I think that I'm good at. And I don't want it to fake stuff. So, like, for example, my son and I do our little carpool, like, school drop off jam sessions every morning in the car.
Okay.
We put it on social media, and it lives in my like Instagram story. It's kind of fun. And so I was asking ChatGPT, like, what songs were released on, like, call it May 27th, knowing that like music drops on I think Thursdays and Fridays of new albums. And so like there should be 7 years of something, out there. Well, ChatGPT like starts making up the dates that songs were released. And I called BS on one of them. I'm like, there's no way this one dropped in that year. And like, so I go and Google it, and ChatGPT made up the date that it like, the day that it had like released. And it used the date, like the 27th, but like made up the month. And I was like, so you really got to look at it that it starts making stuff up. And that's where, like, for me,
Wow.
I'm cautious with it. It's like, okay, cool. I can have it write an email for me, or I can have it, write a buyer letter. It's not going to mess that stuff up, fake it. And it's not necessarily making me dumb. It's it's but
Troy, I have to commend you on that comment, because the takeaway is we really need to train our own minds. We don't need computers to train our minds.
thank you. Yeah, my wife joked with me the other day. I was using it. She goes, "Do you not use ChatGPT for anything?" And I'm like, I feed it to just about what I want it to tell me.
Right.
I had it look over a contract yesterday, a legal contract for a marketing thing for a sponsorship. And I knew exactly what I wanted it to tell me. Like, I was just second guessing myself. Like, so I dropped the PDF in, and I asked it the very specific question of what I thought. Am I ever going to know if it's correct? No. Should I check with my attorney? Yeah, probably. Was I confident enough in my decision and what I was thinking? Yes. But yeah, thank you. Again, I think it's one of those things that it can definitely help you if you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that writing property descriptions and using AI, like, by putting in the property address and not really leveling up like you would as a professional, and still putting the facts, features, the positives in it, loading it in with the negatives and saying like, don't talk about location to the naval base, like, loading it in with what it is that was really there, is great. I mean, here's the thing. My first brokerage and even my second one, like, it's like I say, I can write a property description, takes a bottle of wine, 2 hours, and somebody's still going to have to edit it. Because it's a whole nother art to be able to do it. And I think ChatGPT, and these social media, or not these, but these AI things, like, they're pulling collections of every other property detail, that it's read through all the other listings in history. You're still never going to convey to the reader that's reading that really what the property is. If you do it. So for both of my brokerages, I actually had a professional copywriter. Christy, she's got a website, Writing Real Estate, and she wrote every single listing description, paid for it. Like it was one of the things that I knew agents had a hard time writing property descriptions, and I didn't want the customer, who's the seller, to suffer because the agent didn't want to take the time to write a good description. So it was one of those things that as a broker, I actually paid for because I wanted it. It's the fundamental piece of where the marketing for that house starts. So you better put the best effort into that, no matter what price point.
I love that. Sammy has got her hand up. Good morning.
Good morning. I think it's a very interesting conversation because we use AI in everything that we do. We just don't always think about it or understand it. I've used computers and taught realtors how to use a computer in 1987. I had a laptop, okay? Realtors for sure didn't know how to use a word processor. We had books, we had thermal machines, and then we had computers. A computer AI is a computer application. It is not something to replace us. I mean, I remember people say, "Oh, computers, the internet's gonna replace us." Now it's AI is gonna replace us. It's how you use the tool. It's a tool. Do you use navigation? That's AI. That's technology. That's a type of AI. It's do you use Siri in the car? Do you tell your phone to dial for you? That's AI. It's just different. So, like anything else, overuse without thinking is not the right way to go, right? It's interesting when I'm writing a text, it's guessing what I want to say. And sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. So I have to make the decision as to how to apply it. There's lots of other applications that I truly love that are AI based, like Lovable. I can have it do an amazing brochure for new agents by pulling all these, I mean, it's just code. So it's giving me a tool. I don't have to go hire a software developer to do this brochure for me and have it be an application. I find that if you have the premium version of chat and you teach it more about who you are, and that's what John Lee teaches, is you have to train it, and Carrie Swove, you have to train it to understand who you are and how you work. And then tell it, based on what you know about me,
Exactly.
tell me, write the description, or tell me what I need to do this way or that way. It's giving it part of you. I mean, I have my VA and he goes, tell me how you want me to train this. I say, okay, I give chat my history, my entire history, coming into United States, what my parents did, what I did, how I got into real estate, thinking it'd be less stressful than working for tech companies. Uh, um, that was the biggest laugh ever. And it's a process. You learn, you apply, you learn. So it's another tool. It's not there to replace us. Sometimes you get stuck writing a property description, absolutely. And you look at what it's saying and say, oh, yeah, I guess I could use that angle. And if you have to tell it, hey, this property is located in a beautiful part of the Bay Area, and we have parks, and the words don't come necessarily. So you have it help you be a better person. And yes, copywriters is what we used to use back in the day. And Don Hobbs and his company did amazing work for me back in the day. And now I have a tool that I can use at midnight, at 6 a.m., at noon, or I can go give it to a professional to write. So, like anything else, we need to be aware of what we're doing with it and not relying completely on it. And that's the danger of having something go so fast, but it's a tool.
Yeah, very
Excellent.
much. I mean, it's like it's just like cooking. The better the ingredients you put into it, the better the output.
There's
And
an AI cooking app that a client of mine has developed, and
that's
it's
cool.
allowing people who have dietary allergies to say, okay, take this recipe and tell me how I can make it gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free. Isn't that wonderful? So that's another application. You brought it up. I think it's beautiful. It's
That's
perfect.
great, Troy. Perfect timing. So, Troy, let's get deep on you. Controversy. What do you want to tell us about? What was your most controversial article you wrote for Inman, and what were some of the feedbacks that you get? Because you either like Inman or you don't like Inman. It's kind of like,
That I wrote.
yeah. Is there anything that really shook everybody up and shook the industry up?
The most controversial one that I wrote, I think was in 2021 or 2022. And I called out the mortgage industry. It was kind of an open letter to the mortgage industry about coming to a solution for the interest rates kind of spiking,
Mm-hmm.
and figuring that out versus just letting stuff go to 6-7%. That one went absolutely wild on the Instagram comments, and I went and played in the comments like a bad person, and egged people on, and actually got people in there that said, no, I didn't read the article. Like, I'm like, well, you're commenting based on like a screenshot of it. And I actually made a couple friends off of it that were like negative mortgage people that commented on it, because there was one guy I actually picked up the phone and just called him because he was so wrong. And so that one was pretty interesting. The wrote one 2 weeks ago, and it was about the $30,000 lockbox.
I don't know about that. Talk about that.
The talk about it is that, by putting a lockbox on every single property, is it actually costing your seller money? Not every home can be shown on a lockbox, where you're not getting there ahead of time and turning the lights on. It's just getting back to basics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one kind of resonated with people, but it also, some people didn't want to hear it. Not that things are controversial, but it stuff comes at a time where people don't want to hear it. It's like you're telling your kid they're doing something wrong. They know they're doing something wrong, or they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They really want to hear it. Was it bad? No. Did it upset them because they got called out for it? Yeah. Like, I think that's more like some of the stuff that I've done that, isn't necessarily controversial, because I don't seem to be the controversial type of person. But, there was another one about like the real estate Ozempic. I wrote it a year ago, and it was right when Ozempic was like super cool. And it was like, what do you need to shed this year? Like, in your business, like, what can you do? But this lockbox one was, I think resonated and pushed a few buttons with people, because they're like, oh, well, not everything needs to be, shown with a lockbox. Well, you know what? No matter what price point you have, the seller's hiring you to do something, right? It's not just write the description and put it on the MLS.
Right.
I've always been a big proponent, no matter what the price point, we offered a luxury level of service, luxury being a level of service. You go into Nordstrom's, you're buying a pair of socks, you're buying an Armani suit, you're getting the same level of service.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't it that way with real estate? So as you switch into, from a seller's market to more of a normal market or a buyer's market in some marketplaces, like, why are you putting a lockbox on there? You have to stand out and differentiate your property and give your property the best chance of selling. Well, making sure the toilet seats are down is step one, right? Prior to the showing. Number two is making sure all the lights are on. And number three is walking somebody through the property of those buyers, so that they understand the pros and cons and the facts and features of that property. It is so hard for a, buyer's agent to walk up to a home with with the parents and two kids, unlock the door, get in there, turn the lights on. The parents go one way, the agent's going another, and the two kids are running into the backyard or into the bedrooms to pick out which bedroom is theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the lockbox actually cost you?
So, okay, that's a very interesting thought process because about, oh God, I don't know, let's say 13 years ago, when I went to do the Keller Williams office in Rhode Island, they were not using lock boxes. And I just felt that that was such a waste of the agent's time, because if the agent couldn't be available to open up that lockbox, the seller lost an opportunity to sell their home, to have a buyer come through it. So I took totally the opposite side of trying to get lock boxes on properties. I remember 20 something years ago in Madison, Connecticut, where I grew up, all luxury homes, waterfront properties, things like that, higher end properties. And my top agent, because they didn't have showing agents and stuff back then. She spent the entire day in a cold house letting people in a home. So everybody else at that point in her business got put on the back burner that day. So when you're talking about this, how do you find the balance? How do you say, okay, an agent should be there, but then the agent is ignoring other phone calls, not dealing with other things that are important in their day-to-day life, especially, let's say they have 10, 15 listings. And if you're in a place like Texas, where they can be a half hour apart minimum, how do you talk about that?
Like it's like I said about professionalizing your industry, right? Like I started off as a buyer's agent, or as a showing agent, and that was all I did, was went and showed the properties. I think when I was selling foreclosure properties for Wedgwood, I think I owned 200 plus lock boxes.
Yeah.
Because it just physically couldn't be there for all of them. But it was what the right thing was for that client.
Okay.
A lockbox isn't the right thing for everybody,
Okay.
for every home. But for me, there's the accommodation part of the seller would really like me to be there to open the property up and make sure all the lights are on. I can accommodate your showing at this time and this time. It's just comes down to the dialogue that you have,
taking control.
Yeah, not everything in our lives can be at the drop of a button.
And that's what I wanted to go back to that, because that's what you were saying about when you got sick. You wrote that article about you can't get into your doctor's office right away, or we can't get to an attorney right away. Why do we, as one of the most expensive purchases someone's going to do in their life, why do we feel it's necessary to drop everything, maybe not show up prepared? I just never could understand that. It drives me crazy.
I think it's the fear that the person's going to go somewhere else. Because if Peggy's not available, Pam is. And if Pam isn't, Janet is. But I think, the changes with the buyer broker agreement has made it more, professionalized, where you can't just go and switch to the next agent that's going to open the house up for you. And there's really good, there's, it's more of a, what's it called? The guy, Shawami, they wear orange suits at all the conferences, but it's a cool product out there that he has, that he's built. It's like Uber, but for real estate. If you had a listing that you couldn't get to, or a buyer that you couldn't get into the property because you couldn't be there, you go onto this platform, and it finds the agents there that are vetted, trusted, that can go and show the property for you. It's more on the buyer side than the listing side usage, but it's a cool solution for it. But I think it's just fear. It's fear that the house is going to get shown because I'm not available. Or it's fear of, the buyer's going to go find somebody else to work with me. I just closed on a fairly large deal, and I was out of town when the buyer was available to see it, and when the sellers were able to show it. So what? The buyer went with the listing agent and saw the property. I got filled in afterwards as to how the showing went. Like, could I have sent another agent up there? Yeah, I probably could have, in my place, but I didn't necessarily have anybody that I trusted
Mm-hmm.
to go and, accommodate that type of a, showing. So it was easier to just let them go and, coordinate it. And there was a group text with the three of us, and it was simple. Like,
So your buyer went and saw a property and was let in by the listing agent.
mhm.
How cool is that, guys? The other thing that I
I
think,
wouldn't go and recommend it all the time, but
no,
like,
you have to trust. Yeah,
it worked.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but I
And
mean, but that's the thing, when you've got these buyer broker agreements, I'm not necessarily concerned the listing agent's going to try and steal my client. Like, and
Yeah.
and so it very much depends, who the agent is, just like the comment, like it very much depends. Do you know,
Mhm.
did you trust them? Do they have a good reputation? Are they going to go and try and steal the client? Like, are they going to show up on time? Like,
Right.
And so I don't think it works in every situation by any means, but, not going to let the showing not happen when it's, when I'm the reason why it can't be done at that time.
So I love this when you think a little bit deeper on this as well. Obviously, a lot of us want to know more about attraction, and you had that role as part of the growth team. So if you're in a limiting belief that I don't know anybody or I can't attract, or where am I going to meet people? Why don't you start showing up and letting the other agents in and building relationships with them? Why don't you sign?
I love that question.
Because,
Look, I mean, attraction, whether you're starting a brokerage, or attracting people to a rev share organization, there's two ways you can do it, where you can just pick up the phone and cold call, or you can build off of the relationships that
Mhm.
and production leads to attraction. I'm helping this commercial real estate brokerage, wants to scale and go from like 5 agents. He wants to get up to like 30 agents, and I'm like, cool. He goes, I don't even know where to start. I'm like, how many deals have you closed in the last 2 years? It's like, probably 100. I'm like, cool. There's like 100 people you can take to lunch.
Mhm.
Right. So production, yeah, very much. The second brokerage that I started, I very much went because it wasn't an area that I had a brick and mortar before. With my previous one, I wanted to meet people, not the type that's going to pick up the phone and cold call. So I drove around to open houses every weekend. My son and I, like wife and I,
Yep.
Open houses. And the way that I look at it still is that by going to an open house, I'm able to have a conversation with somebody, start the relationship,
Exactly.
and provide value to them where their broker isn't. Like, because when was the last time your broker stopped into an open house?
I love that.
Like, when was the last time your broker walked in and said, oh my God, you did such a good job with your open house signs, or this or that, or watched you, greet a customer that came in, and you just by the value add of being able to say, hey, you did a great job with that conversation, or hey, I noticed you struggled with getting the phone number. Can I give you a piece of advice? Unsolicited feedback, like, do this instead of asking them to sign in, write down their phone number, ask them for their phone number and write it in yourself. Like, it's harder to make up a phone number when you're telling somebody versus writing it down and making it up.
So Troy, can I jump in on that? I have hosted some open houses for some friends of mine in California this past year. I don't bring any flyers with me. And I tell everyone when they come in, I grab my phone, I look down at my phone and go, I don't have a flyer. Just give me your phone number. I'm going to text it to you right now. What are they going to say? No. I've never had anyone say no. I get their phone number, I send them a text, I've got their contact information, and I move on. And it's not that threat of fumbling on, oh, here, you've got to sign in, get rid of the paper, get rid of all that stuff. Do something a little bit different. And when I go to open houses on the weekends, when I'm coaching, Pam knows, Pam has coached with me. She knows I go directly to it. So does Brad. What have you done? Where are you stepping outside of the box? Don't tell me you don't have relationships. Get in your car. Go to broker previews if they have them in your area. Get in your car. Go to open houses. Just run in any way you are. You don't have to be dressed up. You don't have to be anything. You can just say, hey, I was coming back from the grocery store and I saw your open house. I only have a second. And then follow up.
It's all in the follow-up, right? Like, so for me, like I didn't want to go and start texting a bunch of real estate agents that I'd met. So I did it all literally through Instagram.
Mm-hmm. So talk to us about that. How'd you do it through Instagram?
You know, a lot of it started just with the stories. So it was, you know, commenting, like posting the agent's open house, or, you know, help them promote it. You know, oh, this house, tag the agent on it. I mean, it does two things, right? One, it's showing the people that's viewing my story that, like, oh, I actually sell houses, like, oh, I might want to go see this one. Right. But it's also promoting the agent's property. And again, back to, like, when was the last time their broker did that? They didn't. And so by promoting it and doing that, you know, and tagging it, they typically would follow. They would reshare it, which was great. But like what it really did was it gave me this like this place to start the conversation with an agent, you know, where they brought the facial recognition back every time. And it was an easier spot. So, like, you know, if I wanted to be, you know, working at 2 a.m., I'm not going to text message an agent, but I can message them on Instagram. It's not going to wake them up, you know. Right. Like, you start cultivating this relationship, you invite them to events, you invite them to a broker's open, you slowly like nurture that relationship to where you start to ask them to coffee, or you do this or you do that, and they see it and they, you know, what else is going on in your account because you're engaging with these other people. Same thing.
It's perfect.
So that's kind of my thing with like, you know, and if I was to start over again, I would probably do it that way. You know, and it works both ways. You're just, you know, leaning in with value when you're doing attraction, and, you know, it gives you the opportunity to talk. Look what most agents are bored at an open house.
Yep.
Broker's caravan, not so much. Nobody wants to be seen talking to the competitive broker, right? But at an open house, like, you're here just checking out the inventory. Like, you're not necessarily out there like recruiting agents. You're checking out the inventory.
And don't EXP when you go there.
There you go. I'm at EXP. Then they're gonna throw you out sometimes, you know, like, oh, you're just here to recruit me. No, I'm checking out the inventory, right? Like, you know, it back to what it is. I'm not here to recruit you.
Just be you.
Yeah, it back to, like, you know, it's just the authenticity of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Like, if you start to go and be like, I'm building my, you know, rev share and agent attraction, like, it's going to be counterproductive. But if you're going there because
can I interrupt?
Helping people,
yeah, I was just going to say, Grace had a comment.
I wanted to share with you guys exactly what you're talking about. It happened to me this weekend. I went out and about, and I went to Watch Hill, Rhode Island, and there was an open house sign. So I walked in, met the agent. She was very nice. And I've been anxious to connect with one of the top agents in Rhode Island, Donna Simmons. And as I come in, I turn around and I introduced myself, and she goes, "Oh, Grace," because we're befriended each other on Facebook. She goes, "I'm so happy to meet you." And I was so happy to meet her face to face and connect with her and talk with her and her other agent, and it just all fell together. It was just that step to take, going to an open house. I was on my way to the grocery store. I was dressed nice. When I go out, I always try to dress nice to be presentable, but you know, they looked beautiful, these beautiful women, and I connected, and it just fell together. And to me, that I work better that way than cold
Mhm.
calling. I'm comfortable face to face with people. I'm comfortable being around a person. Not that I mind talking on the phone, but sometimes the impromptu just works out better for me.
Grace, I'm so proud of you. So if you guys don't know, Grace is my cousin, and man, I just like hammer her all the time. It's so bad. What are you doing? Where are you going? You need to go out and talk to more people.
Yes.
And she's brand new, guys. She's brand new doing this. So, you know, that's just go show up, Grace. I'm so proud of you that you did that. Thank you, thank
And
you, thank you.
I was so happy to meet her.
Good. Well, when I come to Rhode Island next week, we're going to talk about this. We'll take them to lunch. But
Okay.
anyway,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for sharing.
Peggy, you
that.
met Kirby from Agent Image.
I love Kirby. Yes.
So I do, you know, as I do advisory work, and so Agent Image is a company that they built my agent website or my
They're
personal,
building mine. We're starting
and
this
they're
week.
building another one for me right now. So I'll have two websites because I'm building a production website where it's like, you know, the first one was more about like just me, and then my new one's like, you know, integrated with Real Scout for, you know, IDX and buyer search and stuff, and you know, very much just like agent facing stuff. And so I do a lot of work with them and helping advocate for them, and you know, moving relationships around and stuff. But one of the like cool things is I said to Kirby, like, stop waiting for the phone to ring for people that want to buy websites. Go to open houses.
Yes.
And so she's started doing it to, like, you know, drum up conversations about websites. And
Wow.
has it resulted in sales? Yeah, it truly has, because it puts her in an opportunity to go and talk to people in a different capacity. Look, our title reps and our home warranty and mortgage people all go to open houses. Why does it stop us from doing something? You know, it's you in the relationship in the place, and it's so easy to go do your due diligence and like put the map together. You go on like Redfin and you look at all the properties. You can see who the listing agent is, or you can pull the search on the, you know, the MLS and filter by office and filter by agent, you know, and look at who's there. Like, you just pray that it's not a, you know, open house host, but you get the actual agent. But you can really target who you want to go and visit. Like, you want to go build those relationships with the higher, you know, higher price point agents, go to the open houses. Like, it I don't know. It's that one thing that, you know, I would do it the same way again, because it's where the value add is, and it's where you get to go and meet people. Like, you know, we've taken cookies to open houses before, if you get there early enough in the day, where you drop off the cookies for them.
Yep.
Because then it's like, oh, here's some value. I just want to drop off cookies. So you had cookies today.
So Troy, I want to just piggyback on something you said. Because I used to be like, oh, I hope that, you know, Doug Eckelberg or whoever this top agent is going to be, hoping that they're going to do their open house. Well, half the time those top agents are not going to do their own open houses. But here's where you get to build the relationship with the top agents. How about if you call the top agent later that day or the next day and say, dude, I just want to tell you, I went to your open house. You had so-and-so there. What an amazing job she or he did representing you. Take it a step further. So when I was first, like I said, the top agent isn't there. But then I figured, how can I change this around? Call that agent and say, hey, they're doing a great job. I guarantee you, nobody else is doing that.
No, and that's a really good point. I had done that. I'd even tag them on the Instagram post if they weren't there and they had a different, you know, somebody sitting in the open, because it helps, you know, validate the agent there was doing a good job. It makes that person feel good, but it, you know, it goes both ways. They want to know that the house looked good, that they, you know, greeted everybody correctly, and you know, it's their reputation on the line. So when you can validate somebody like that, it goes a long ways.
Everything that we're talking about on this call has not cost you one dime. Every other Zoom that you get on, a lot of them that you sign up for, there's a pitch. There's, you've got to buy this, you've got to buy that. This is what I love about our company, is that we can just come in and share ideas. We're not always selling. We want every single one of you to get better. And we don't need you to spend a lot of money. So there's no excuses on why you can't do this, right, Troy? We're not out here. I mean, the biggest thing we plug so far is Agent Image, but we're not saying, oh my God, you have to go get their website.
No, but go get one. It's nice. I'll make an intro for you. No, but I will segue into this. So you'd asked an article that was, button pushing. I wrote one that was, what's the true cost of free? That one kind of ruffled some feathers for people. And if you think about it, it was, how much technology do you get at EXP? You get ZenList, which you could have Real Scout, but you get ZenList. You get a CRM, you get a website. Like, if you're not using it, what's the true cost of free? If you're not using it to its fullest capacity, what's the true cost of free? Like, you're at a brokerage that provides more support, more solutions than any other brokerage on the planet.
So talk more about that, because we're all getting recruiting calls from other companies too. And everybody else is saying, oh, I'm a technology company, or we've got the best technology. And
that's great. If you're not using it, what's it matter? Like,
exactly.
I'd say show of hands here, but half of the people don't have the camera on, which is totally fine at 6 a.m. But do you have the Lofty website, like, that's provided for you up and going?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you using the CRM? And if you don't have the Lofty website up, do you have a website?
Right.
Or are you using the fact that, like, my brokerage provides one as the crutch for why you're not doing one?
Troy, do you prefer Lofty over KV Core?
I will say this, the best CRM is the one that you use.
Exactly.
And, for the people that still use Top Producer, which was amazing 15 years ago, for them to switch to Follow Up Boss would be detrimental. So the best CRM is the one that you use.
Right.
I love that.
Because again, I mean, I know people that work on Monday. I know people that work on HubSpot. Like, at the end of the day, the best one is the one that they're actually using, because switching might be more detrimental than not. The moral of the story is those that, oh, my brokerage provides something. Well, you're not even using it to its fullest extent, and it's free. So what's the point? The other point of that article was very much that, being, and then again, not trying to sell anything here, being that, I come from the indie broker space, like, it was very much, having your own individual identity and your own individual brand. And so what was the true cost of free when you really couldn't convey that through your marketing or through your branding or your, in this instance, the website? And so what was the true cost of free when you aren't really able to be authentic with what it is that you're trying to convey? And so, in that article actually came because I was talking to a friend of mine who's got an indie brokerage, and they were on like a little template website. And I'm like, you are such a big personality, like, and your website does not reflect this. Like, so are you truly being authentic to you? She goes, well, the brokerage pays for it. It's free. I said, so what is it really costing you at the end of the day? Is it costing you agents that would be at your brokerage if it actually represented who you are? Mm-hmm. Would you have additional business because your website was authentic to who you are? Because look, at the end of the day, the website gets through the front door before you do. Whether you've got social media as your like lead gen, or you're doing direct mail or wherever, they're looking for the website, in my opinion, right? And I've had God knows how many of these things now. Like, it was always one of those things that I needed to have. And when you've got brokerage solutions for it that are free, there's no reason why you don't.
So what I hear you saying is, even with all the technology, that some companies offer, are the agents actually using? Are you using what we
Look, I
give?
mean, most of the time, no. I think you see adoption rates of like, 30 to 40%, if that, with most brokerage provided tech. Like, are you using Zenlist on with all of your buyers, or are your buyers still in the MLS for their searches?
So expand more on Zenlist.
I'm probably the wrong person to expand more on Zenlist. Like, I prefer, Real Scout.
Real or whichever. What are
I mean,
what are
but
some
it's just
tips?
it's that, I mean, go back to, it not that it's AI driven or anything, but like, instead of putting your buyers in the MLS to get their notifications of what just hit the market or what at a price reduction, and you're getting those auto drips there, it's bringing them into a professional platform that's just for that, where you can interact with the buyers, interact with, the properties they're looking at. One of the things I Follow Up Boss, like diehard for CRM. Like, I love Follow Up Boss and I love Real Scout for the nurture stuff. But like, the power of it is, it's like if a buyer likes a house or sees a house 3 times in Real Scout, it pings me in Follow Up Boss, and I need to follow up with this buyer and reach out and say hi. So when you start looking at like best in class stuff there, like that really like makes the use of technology easier when it all integrates together. But for me, the buyer notifications from the MLS were always just the weakest thing. It never really showed the property well. It was a boring email. If a buyer was working with multiple agents, the likelihood they were getting that, it didn't make me stand out any differently. So whether you're using Zenlist or Real Scout or Fellow, or there's so many of them, like the buyers need to be on something so you can see what's going on with their searches, right? You don't necessarily get all the dynamic information and reporting that you do from the MLS, and you're better off just giving them a better experience, and you have a solution that's paid for with you. Like, so use it, take advantage of it, because again, what's the true cost of free if you're not using it?
Pam, good morning.
Hey, I was just gonna say my last 3 buyers that I've worked with, I have, because I was just kind of wanting to throw it out there and see which platform worked best for my buyers. And so my last 3, I invited them all, to search through the MLS and through Zenlist. And I don't think any of them actually ended up completing their like account process with my MLS search, but they all 3 did with Zenlist, and I got really good feedback from them on how easy it was for them to use. And honestly, for me, I felt like it was a lot easier to stay in contact with them and up to date on like what they were looking at, what they were liking. And it was easy for me to go in and add notes, so that we could all be on the same page of what they were liking about this place, what they didn't like, and I really liked it a lot.
Perfect. Thanks for that.
I went in and actually set up a Zenlist account yesterday myself, as a buyer search. And I hadn't really been in it, but it's like, it really does. It's the place that houses even all of our, off-market inventory. So it should be the first place that we go to start our search, no matter what platform you use for your nurture. The agents that are putting the properties in that are coming soon, or EXP exclusive content, are showing there. They're not. So you're potentially missing out on other opportunities for your clients if you're not looking there, because so many EXP agents use it. I mean, there's 80,000 EXP agents in the nation.
It's amazing.
It's a vault of information there. And things are changing right now, like, with all of that stuff, like, but as of right now, it's still a spot where there's so much other inventory to be viewed and looked at. So look at it and use it.
So Troy, I just want to step back in time for about, I don't know, a year. Think about where our headspace on some agents a year ago. Everybody was going into panic. Everybody was saying, we're not going to be in business. We're not going to sell houses. No one knew how to deal with the new buyer broker thing. Here we are a year later. And I know there are people on this call who are making more money from this, who are showing everybody what their value is, and absolutely being able to say, I'm worth this. So isn't it crazy what we let in our heads a year ago?
And look, nobody died. Like all of that negative headspace and wasted energy and emotion, like, you know, the hell. You know, the energy and emotion is one of those things that I really try to control in my life. You know, I had cancer in 2020, and like one of the things, like, you know, it was thyroid cancer. It's the easy one to get, right? But now I take, you know, supplements for it and, you know, meds for it to, you know,
Glad you're okay.
Thank you. But like, you know, the energy is the one thing that like I can't really control. Like I can fall asleep at 6 o'clock in the afternoon with a Red Bull in my hand if I've had a, you know, a long day, just because your thyroid creates the, you know, everything that your body does. So I really like try and protect my energy and like my emotion and like, you know, where the headspace gets. And so I think I looked at that stuff a year ago a little differently than others because I knew that I couldn't change it. You know, I wouldn't even, you know, back to the writing, I wouldn't even write or talk about it because like what was the energy that was used going to really do? I wasn't going to change what was going to happen. Like little old me isn't going to do that. Like my opinion was just an opinion, like in that regard. Like, so what was it gonna really do? And I think that, you know, we get so caught up in like, oh my God, the market sucks, or oh my God, your interest rates are up, and oh, interest rates are down now. Like, dude, at the end of the day, there's still plenty of people that want to buy and sell a house and need to, that we have the opportunity to help. The noise and the confusion and the disruption is always going to be there. Like once all of this is done, there's going to be something else, you know?
Exactly.
And, you know, and so what can I control today is what is, you know, what I can do. And yeah, the market's kind of wonky today. Yeah, it's definitely bipolar. You know, and so, but what can I control with it? You know, I can control the narrative that I'm giving to my clients, you know, which is the narrative that like I believe.
Right.
I can choose to not let the, you know, negativity or the noise get into my head and, you know, become thoughts that are toxic, like, and conversations that are toxic. And I can continue to, you know, push forward and choose the day that I'm going to have and choose the year that I'm going to have in my production, no matter what's going on. So yeah, the noise and the disruption did, you know, the commissions are going to be cut and like the buyers aren't going to want to pay or they can't, like,
Right.
In fact, I think the statistics show that buyers agents are making more now than they were before.
I know there's people on this call, Pam, right, that are making more money. And I think this is a great way to wrap this up. And Troy, thank you so much for being on today. And I love it that we had a lot of different conversations here, you know. It was kind of like, all right, different perspectives, but you said it best. It's our limiting beliefs that hold us back. It is our self-sabotage, our imposter syndrome, everything we talk about all the time here, you kind of covered it. And I love that you're just like laid back and you're saying, okay, this is what we need to do. And we covered everything today, from ways to show up, to get into relationships, to are we using the right technology? And if people are bragging about technology, what does free actually mean? I'm going to think about that lockbox again, because I've already been on the other side of being a big proponent, I do think if you've got a condo that's vacant and, you know, I'm going to say put a lockbox on it. However, if you've got an agent that is someone you want to get to know and they make an appointment on your home, even if they've got a lockbox, go meet them. What a great opportunity to show up, you know, and what a great opportunity to say to your seller, hey, I'm going to be at this one because I know that there's a lot of potential here. You guys just change your narrative.
Go door knock it. I asked this one Zillow, I sat down with this Zillow Flex organization, and they get 800 live connections a month. And I said to them, I'm like, the agents, I'm like, so raise your hand if you've sold anything other than the Zillow Flex leads this year. And like 2 of them did. And I'm like, yeah, I go, so you're going from house to house to house, you know, but why not go door knock if you loved the house you just showed and go door knock the like 8 houses around you and just go knock and say, hey, I loved this house that I just showed. I don't think it's the right one for my buyers, but do you know anyone that's looking to move into the neighborhood because I want to sell this house?
Troy, I've sold more homes by going on door knocking, and I've had the clients in the car. True story.
Hope you
Did
left the AC
exactly
on.
that. Back in the 80s, I did that. And this is where people it blows my mind. They think they have to have this and have to have that and technology. And yeah, it's all great. But freaking A, get back to basics. Get out of your car, knock on a door. Work for your buyer, folks. And like, no one's dying. Nothing's happening here that's going to be, you know, I know of one instance in the ice where one of my agents in Rhode Island shouldn't have been doing that, but he did. He was in bold. The dude fell and unfortunately he broke his wrist, but he also got a listing. I mean, you know, that's an extreme, but all we're saying here is you've got so much right there that's available to you that you don't have to spend a ton of money. There's no excuse on why you aren't doing that. Thanks for bringing up the door knocking on the circle prospecting. Get out there. Thank you.
Hey man, there's so much stuff you can do as long as you don't limit your mindset that is free, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm excited. I love the conversation. I know we've gone over. Thank you. Is there anybody that's still left on the call that has a question? You're one of the top contributors in the country here. Well, it's all good. Troy, we hope you'll come back. We'll hope you keep us posted. Are there any books that you're reading right now?
Ooh, that's a good one. The 5 Types of Wealth.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one. Okay.
It's a bestseller right now. Andrew Flackner, the CEO of Real Scout, recommended it to me. I literally started it and then I decided to watch a movie on the airplane instead. So I haven't really gotten through it yet, but it's the book that I'm reading. I thought about reading Snoop Dogg's autobiography again. Like I read it in high school, but this one, like, you know, came with me on the last trip.
Cool. I do everything on Audible too, as well. But I just had this sent to me. It was brought up over the weekend with some friends. And it's Jefferson Fisher's, let's see, my camera is blurred there. The Next Conversation. So that's a great book as well. It's been around. I think I heard about it last year. I don't remember, but get it on Audible. Listen to books, you know. I love finding out what's on your reading list. All right. Thanks, guys. Great meeting, Troy. Thank you very much. I'll talk to everyone soon.
Bye,
guys.